Hello, my fellow readers. It's Dark Symphony 777 with a new video. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. So, the first official video of 2022 will be a review of Paper Mario Temple of the Sun. And I came across a conundrum. I finished the story way too fast. I wasn't expecting to finish the story. I finished it in like 2 days. Like 2-3 days. And so I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I thought since Temple of the Sun takes a lot of cues from Paper Mario. It takes a lot of cues in terms of its story structure and stuff like that. I thought I would do a tier list of the chapters from Paper Mario 64 and Paper Mario 1000 Year Door. I'm only doing those two games because those are the only two ones I played. I did play a little bit of Super, but I'm not going to do that game because I never beat it. I got as far as like Fort Francis, but it's like I'm not going to do that one because I don't really beat the game, so I'm kind of there, and I haven't played that one in so long. Unlike 64 and 1000 Year Door, which I played a lot, so I kind of remember more fondly. And I'm going to be doing 3 separate tier lists. This one is going to be ones based off the chapters, then part 2 will be based off the Paper Mario bosses, and then the final video will be based off the partners. I figured I'd do those 3 because they're like the 3 most obvious ones. I'm not too big into like challenge runs, speed runs, and stuff like that. So like these will be the 3 big ones. But I know stuff about gameplay and story design. Gameplay design and story. So what makes a good chapter? Well, what makes a good chapter is how long it is. So basically, as you go through each chapter, the chapter should be going probably a little bit longer, and having more stuff to do. How interesting is the location? What do you do? How do you complete the objectives to get to the Star Spear, or in 1000 Year Door, the Crystal Star? What use do you have of any of your partners, if you need to use them? How well paced it is? Like, is there any padding and stuff like that? How well the enemy placement and how tough the enemies are, and how much fun it is. So let's actually get started. So the first chapter we're going to do is chapter 1 of Paper Mario 64, Storming Koopa Brothers Fortress. Honestly, I think this is a textbook example of... One second. I was actually very thirsty. So anyway, Storming Koopa Brothers Fortress is a pitch-perfect example of what makes a good Paper Mario chapter. It's not terribly long, but it's just long enough to basically have fun with it. The main antagonist, the Koopa Brothers, are instantly iconic. And they constantly harass you throughout the chapter, which actually doesn't really happen across any of the other chapters in 64 or even 1000 Year Door. I think the closest 1000 Year Door gets to it is Dupless in Twilight Town. But even then, it's not really as abundant as the Koopa Brothers, because the Koopa Brothers do harass you like once. So let me tell you what they do. They stop you from even starting the chapter because they literally blocked the way, citing construction. By disguising themselves as toads, you need to get Merlin to basically say, "Hey, did you know that there's like construction work on the way to the Koopa Brothers Fortress?" It's like, wait a minute, no, that's not right. And of course he zaps them, turns them back to the Koopas, and then they run away. They unleash the Fuzzies on the Koopa little town nearby. Like, they're the ones who unleash the Fuzzies there. They hold up the bridge, leading to, like, the upper portions of the fortress. They put you in a trap by by jerry rigging a coin, like an item block, to possibly get like to do something. They unleash bullet bills on you. They constantly inadvertently give you hints like, haha, you'll never get this, haha. And they constantly like needle and harass you. And then they show up in like a fake Bowser robot. Behold. With like a Princess Peach toy in it. I don't know. It's really weird. But overall, for the story, you basically go to the Koopa state, the little Koopa town, free the Fuzzies. It turns out the Koopa brothers were actually actually lived there, but they were just kind of annoying everyone. And so they basically started working for Bowser. Bowser's like, hey, just take over this fortress. Like, alright! Because the fortress originally used to be owned by Bomb-Oms. So basically they took over the fortress, locked all the Bomb-Oms, including Bombette up. And basically just took it over and said, hey, you're not gonna get in. You're not gonna get in. At all. And then just basically just stay there, just being their typical TMNT stuff for themselves. You know, stuff like that. Overall, this is a nice, solid chapter that gets you into what makes a chapter good in Paper Mario. There's not really a lot to do. There's just enough to do in the story. You do have to come back to do some to do a side quest involving a letter. The mayor of the Koopa Coop, something like that, and doing like a lot of favors with him. And there's some stuff that you need, like other like Watt and stuff like that. Watt and I think like Sushi. I think there is a thing with Sushi that you can do. I don't know 100% sure about that. I know there is something you can do with Watt in there, but Sushi, I'm not 100% sure. There's not a lot of padding. There's not a lot of backtracking. The partner use is actually really well because this is the only chapter in both games where you get two partners in the chapter, which honestly also kind of hurts it because neither Cooper nor Bombette doesn't really get a character arc in this chapter. Cooper gets a character arc later in chapter in the Dry Desert and Lava Island because his character is directly relevant to another character. And so, you know, that character, Colorado, kind of shows up in those two chapters. So Cooper kind of gets some character development and a decent character arc in those two chapters. But Bombette doesn't really get much of anything because the whole character arc is just, we just want to take the fortress back. But while you do use Cooper pretty well, like you have to use Cooper in this chapter, you don't really use Bombette much. Like she kind of drops off immediately because there's just not really a lot you can do with her. But it doesn't really stop Storming Koopa Brothers Fortress from being actually an S tier. Like, there's so much to love about this chapter. What's the next one? The Mystery of Dry Ruins. And then we get like a completely, utterly steep drop-off. Like, this chapter just exists. It gives us Parakarry, which is like completely horrible because I don't like Parakarry. So you basically get onto the train. It takes you to the Mount Rugged area. You basically have to help Parakarry find some letters. So you kind of forced into like some kind of padding situation where you have to explore the mountain area just so you can get Parakarry, so you can get to the desert. And then the desert's actually pretty big. It's not too big, but it's big enough that it's gonna be kind of annoying. You go into the dry town with all the Mousers and stuff like that. To find Mustafa, you basically will give you hints on where to go. You basically have to go find an oasis, get a lime, give a lime to a specific NPC who turns out to be Mufasa. and then just basically go into the dry ruin. But you gotta find the dry ruin but Mufasa gives you a rock that'll basically tell you where it is. Then you go in the ruins. You have to go do a bunch of puzzle stuff while the boss of that area, Toot and Koopa, basically just annoying you with like a weird voice. It's not it has some padding, but the problem is it doesn't really have much of a story. It's just kind of there. Like, it doesn't have much of a story. That's basically this chapter's main fallacy, is the fact there's just nothing in terms of story. Like, okay, it's Colorado wanting to find the ruins. But it's like, he's not really involved in going inside. It's not like Lava Island where he actually helps out and just basically follows you, but he gets, like, turns into a butt monkey, constantly humiliating himself. Like, and Toon Koopa, come on. Doing the ooh thing is not really that entertaining. Cortez did it better in Thousand Year Door. He did it way better. Mainly because Cortez at least built up, unlike Toon Koopa, who's just there. It's really just there. Seriously, but there is some stuff to do. Not a lot, because you can do a lot of stuff in the desert. I think there's like a lot of stuff you can find. And I think you can also find a. There's also like like someone like Merlin in that area. Problem is, I completely forgot what he does. Yeah, I completely forgot what he does in that area. But it's actually, there's just not a lot to do. You don't really use Parakarry that much outside of the once you get into the desert, you don't really use him that much. In the mountain area, you get some use out of him. Let's see, it's okay. Then we get the invincible Tubba blah blah. Tubba blah 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 blah. This one actually has a unique setup where in the fact that you don't really know where to go. Like, we just know, oh, it's in Tubba blah blah. Okay, who's that? Who's that? And instead of waiting for Twink to basically tell you that, oh, Tubba is here. No! You get a Toad, Togartsmutt, who's basically spooked out of his mind, with Bootler, who's an NPC in Chapter 3, to basically tell you that, hey, there's a ghost in the forest. Can you help me out? And of course, Bootler's there. It's like, ha ha ha. And basically, you have to go through the forever forest, go find the Boo Mansion. You get the super boots from this, and you basically just go ham. Like, once you get, like, the first area, the forever forest, not really that good unless you're doing like with the exception of a side mission where there's like a Bulb. That'll basically give you a seed, and you actually need that Bulb in order to get to this area right here. And once you get to the Boo Manor, it's like, well, try and get to the mistress. And then, of course, we get to the star of the show, Milady Bow. Milady. And instantly, like, there's a reason why people remember this chapter the most. Because the moment Lady Bow shows up, everything gets a million times better. She's such a great character that I'm going to talk about Bo when we get to the partners video. But she basically gives you like all the information right there. Like, okay, there's a Cloba named Tubba. Basically eating her booze. We have your Star Spirit, and we're gonna keep it away from you unless you help us. So you're gonna help us. So what if I say no? There's no in this situation. Yeah! And of course, you basically have to go to Ghostly Gulch. You actually see Tubba Blubba eating a boo, and then you have to go across Tubba Blubba's fortress in order to be able to find out why he's invincible, and basically try and beat him. And I love the implementation of everything. This one actually has the not as good as Tubba Blubba's invasive, but not as invasive as the Koopa Brothers, because Tubba Blubba only becomes a factor at the very end, where he's chasing you. The use of Bao is excellent because you need Bao out on at all times in order to progress through like the entire manor, because there's like constant security drones constantly like grabbing you. To basically kick you out, you need to have Bao pretty much as your partner the entire time, unless there's like a specific item you want to grab, and then you basically have to switch back to Bao. Tubba Blubba's a decent enough villain because he's some kind of sympathetic, because once you get to the end, you find out the reason why he kind of turned into Bao is because Bao and the other boos were just constantly bullying him, and then he's like, I just want to fight back. And also Lady Bao just completely not regretting doing that and saying, flat out implying she'd do it again. But we'll leave him alone for a little bit. It's like, yeah, but I like punishing. Alright, alone for now. Good Lord, set up an appointment. Set an appointment 2 weeks from now. Yes, my lady. Yes, my lady, I'm gonna do it. We'll plan a prank-a-thon for later. There is one other thing, is I do like the Mushroom Story version of this chapter a little bit more. For those of you who don't know, Mushroom Story is basically a alternate version of Paper Mario over on fanfiction.net. If you're under 18, don't read it because it does have erotic material. It is an erotic story. And the reason I like that version more than this 64's version a little bit more is because at the very end, when they beat Tubba Blubba, Mario said, "We're not going anywhere until you apologize to her," and basically forces Lady Bao to basically go apologize to Tubba Blubba. And unlike in this one, she's kind of more pitiable because she kind of shows up a little bit more, and you kind of get into her character just as smidgen more. And you do feel a little bit more sorry for her. Like with Tubba Blubba, it's like, yeah, he does do despicable me, but he's more of like a victim. But this one, she can't, because all the characters in Mushroom Story, with the exception of Mario and like some of Toad's so far, are like, and Peach. Peach is actually male in that story. She's kind of more pitiable. So at the end, basically Mario just kind of drags Lady Bao, like kind of like, you're gonna go say sorry to her, and Lady Bao's like, fine, and basically go back to the fortress that's destroyed. And they basically, they find Tubba Blubba, and Mario basically just makes, like, you're gonna do it? Okay. And basically apologizes to Tubba Blubba. It's like, it's actually pretty sweet. I actually love that idea. Like, I really wish you could have done that. But no, you don't. I think it would have been a nice addition in the game if you do that. But, really the only thing holding it back is there's just not really a lot to do. This one's very linear in how to go about things. There's just not a lot to do. Like, you can easily just get everything done, except maybe like one or two tiny things what you need Watt for to just get everything in the story. But I think it's a solid A tier. But Lady Bao literally carries this thing. Next one is, let's see, what what is chapter 4 called? Trials in the Toy Box. This is actually another decent story. This one is way too long, though. So basically, this one has another unique setup to Invincible blah blah blah, where once you go back to Toad Town, it's completely taken over by Shy Guys. And they're basically just running amok, just stealing everything. And you basically have to do a lot of padding, because in order to progress in the toy box, you gotta actually go find the toy box first of all. So you gotta find out where they come from. They come from like a random house in Toad Town, inside a toy box. So you go inside and basically have to hunt down certain items that the Shy Guys have actually stolen. And you can't actually get to the toy box until you basically get the Shy Guys out of Toad Town, like all of them. Like if you miss one, you can't access the toy box. Granted, it's pretty easy to get them all, but you just basically have to go near the area. You don't have to actually go in the area, but it's fine. And then you go into the toy box, and you basically just go. You have to try and get the star, and get everyone's stuff back. It's barely much of a story. It has a little bit more story than Dry Ruins. It's okay. I do like the gameplay because I like the Shy Guys, and they're just a really fun group of enemies to basically mess around with, because they all have you have Spy Guy, you have Medic Guy, you have Pyro Guy. You have Anti Guy, who's like a who's like an optional super boss. And if you even think you're tough enough, no, I don't want to deal with the scams. And there's a lot of stuff that you use. Granted, there's not much of a story, and Watt doesn't really factor into the game that much. It basically just helps you get one specific item and helps you get to the boss area. And that's really it. General Guy is an okay villain, but I think General Guy should have been like the Koopa Brothers, where he just kind of annoyed them throughout, or rallied the troop and stuff like that. I think the story is okay. There is some padding issues because once you get the item, you get before I forget, there's also a little quiz thing where in the interlegal, because you play as Peach in between each chapter, Bowser notices Peach sneaking around, and basically okay, wait a minute, no, Mario's going to head to the toy box. Maybe we should get some guards to protect him, to protect some important items, which are the items that the Koopa Brothers, not the Koopa Brothers, the Shy Guys stole in Toad Town. And so Bowser would basically ask Princess Peach, it's okay, what is Mario's worst fear? And you have two enemies, and you also have a random item you can just grab. That adds a lot of personality to the chapter, because it's supposed to be a very, very wacky, low down chapter. You have a very intense, somewhat intense chapter in Tubba Blubba, and then you have an intense chapter in Lava Lava Island. So having a more laid back, goofy thing is appreciated. Even if it doesn't go that well, I give it a B. I will bring up, I think, going back to Mushroom Story, I like the idea of all the Shy Gals being short stacks, but it's come on, they ain't -8 Shy Gals. Not to mention the author gave General Gal a personality, she just wanted to play, instead of all the other Shy Guys who acted were basically girl children, or however you want to say that. You basically play a lot of sports and a lot of activities, and basically behave like kids. General Gal was basically wanted to play board games and all these very serious games, and was kind of lonely because no one else really wanted to play with her. And so basically only worked for Bowser, because that's the name of female Bowser in that story. That's the only thing that she wants. She really just wanted friends, and that's kind of sympathetic. even Mario's like kind of takes pity on her. Like, yeah, tell Blobo Mario feels sorry for her, but at least, but with the General Gal, Mario's just like pity you because you just wanted someone to play with. It's kind of sad. Granted, she's also short stack. I still think the -8 gals were better, but I'll take the short stacks then. Let's see, Lava Island. Oh god damn it! I fucking hate this chapter. What is the name of this chapter? Hot Times on Lava Island. Oh no, this one has a legitimate story. This one's continuing the theme of having to do something before you can even get access to the area. You have to actually find a way to get to Lava Island, which is there's a whale in the port. However, it has a little infestation in its stomach, and you have to fight like a little mini boss that's just there and beat it up before you can actually get to get to Lava Island. Colorado actually goes with you because he actually wants to, because he heard about a treasure on Lava Island. And it's so weird. Like, this is the only chapter in the game that's kind of split up into 3 acts. Because you have the first act, which is you go into the Yoshi village. You find out all the Yoshis are gone. Sushi has to help you. You gotta find the Yoshis, and then you get Sushi's help navigating the island. Colorado's with you pretty much more or less every step of the way, because he wants to find the treasure, and it's actually kind of good that keep Cooper out, because you actually get to see more into his character around this chapter. This is his character, not Sushi's. So she's like, I'll just get you around the island, that's it. And BAM! Gone. Then you get into the jungle, which is you have to get to Raphael the Raven in order to get into the volcano, and then you got to navigate the volcano. So overall, this story is very, very tedious. It's very long because you have the jungle, then you have the deep jungle, and then you got the volcano, and then you're on top of Yoshi Village, which is like only like 3 areas in and of itself. So this is like a very, very long, very, very winding area. Like, it's very winding. It's slow going because you gotta actually find you gotta find the Yoshis before you even progress. There's lots of mini bosses. You gotta fight like the Magic Koopas and go. And of course you got the Lava Piranha, which is the boss. It doesn't... I give it a C. It just not only does it drag on too long, but at this point, you pretty much have all the partners, so there's just nothing in terms of side story for you to do. There's not even a Bobo here to do. There's just nothing. There is just literally nothing to do with this. Like... I mean, the story's nice with Colorado kind of getting bummed out and kind of becoming a butt monkey as he's constantly following you. It's like, I'm going to find the treasure my own way. And he's like constantly following you even into the volcano. Like, he finds some way into the volcano with you. And he's like, I'm going to get it anyway. I also like the fact that the chapter doesn't end when you get the star. Like, the chapter ends once you skip the volcano. Because once you get the star, the volcano starts rising. And the star actually do a little platforming thing in order to get out, and this star actually gets you out. But it's just way too long. Like, it's way too long. There's too much stuff happening and not enough payoff. Just not. Chapter 6. We have Dark Days and Flower Fields. This one's interesting in the fact that, first off, in order to get to Flower Fields, you actually have to go to 4 specific locations in the game. You got to go to the Forever Forest. You got to go to the Koopa Village. You got to go to Mount... I'm not... I think you got to go to Mount Rugged because I think there's a bulb in Mount. You got to go to 4 specific areas in the game where there's 4 bulbs, and you basically, let's see, is there? No, okay, yeah, 4. Yeah, so basically you got to go to 4 magical seeds from a bulbs. There's one in Koopa Village. There's one in the Forever Forest. I think should be one in Mount Rugged, somewhere around that area. I can't remember. And then Colorado has the last one, which he won't give you unless you give him the treasure from Lava Island, which is like a little vase. And then you go into Flower Fields. There's an immediate tone shift where everything's like dark and muggy because the main villain, Hufflepuff, basically just wants to pollute the world and just basically do it like a lot of environmental damage to it. It's a really cool story because you basically have to try and bring down his operation like one step at a time. And unlike Lava Island, even there's a lot of backtracking, but it doesn't feel tedious at all. Because every single point of the backtracking is to progress to basically break down another part of his plan. Like, okay, he blocked this guy so the sun won't get out. He made a machine so that way he can keep making plants. He basically summons, gets Monty moles to start harassing the plants, preventing the water from spreading. You gotta ruin his plans one step at a time. And it's really cool. Granted, there is some kind of annoyance on the gameplay because you actually... you can't progress into certain areas without a certain specific berry. And if you don't have that berry, you're not gonna progress. And I believe they basically close the gate after you, so even if you go back, you have to find another berry. I can't remember for sure about that specific part. You do get the final partner in the game, Spike, but he's barely a factor in the story. And he really only matters on before you get to the machine that's keeping the planet, the clouds, allowing you to get to Huff and Tough. That's really it. You know what? I just realized I'm gonna bump up Lava Island to B because you need sushi in half the game, in half that chapter. Granted, once you get in the volcano, sushi kind of becomes somewhat irrelevant, except for fire enemies. But you also get ice power, which is you rather have. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, so so Flower Fields is a really, really good chapter. It's a really good chapter. It doesn't drag, and it's not not tedious enough to really drag. And I love the area. I love the atmosphere of just the cheer music kind of contrasting with the very gloomy atmosphere. So overall, Flower Fields gets a solid A tier. Next we have a Shiver, a Star Spirit on Ice. This one... This one's just short. This one doesn't really have much of a story. This one has a little mystery element to it, where the mayor of Shiver City is knocked out, but everyone thinks he's dead. And so it turns out he's just knocked out, and then you just go. Basically, this one's horrifyingly straightforward. This one's just once the mayor's knocked out, you just basically go to the Crystal King Castle, beat him up, and then you get the star. However, outside the story, it's a really good chapter in terms of everything else. It makes excellent uses of all the partners. Gives you lots of puzzles that you can solve. A really good unexpected villain with the Crystal King, because there's so many questions with him. Good gameplay. There's lots of stuff to do. Like, there's even a little Easter egg where if you go into the inn and wake up, you'll get like a bunch of treats. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do in Shiver City. There's a lot. There is so much you can do in that area. It's crazy. But the fact that it has no story to speak of kind of really hinders it. So I'm gonna lump it. If it had a more engaging story throughout the chapter, I would have bumped it to an S tier. But having no story, it's gonna go into an A tier. Next one, Star Power Showdown. This one's again straightforward. You basically just go beat up Bowser. That's it. Well, that's it. That one's just like, this one doesn't even have a story. This one's just like, oh, you can now get to Bowser. Just go beat up Bowser. That's it. That's it. You have to go to where the Star Spirits live. Fight a Monstar, which is like a bunch of Star Kids kind of combining each other to like be threatening. Like, oh, booga booga, booga booga. But it's nothing. It's like, again, this is like Shiver Star. It has a nothing story because it's literally just, there's no plot left to do. It's just Bowser. You can get to Bowser, just go beat up Bowser. That's it. But the gameplay is, again, these two chapters are like, have the best gameplay of everything because there's a lot. There's not as much stuff you can do in here because it's just not, because this one's like slightly linear, but it has it has some backtracking, but not enough that it's tedious. It has some really cool puzzles where you can fight like 3 anti-guys if you fail. It has a very clever bait and switch where you think you're about to fight the Koopa Brothers again, but then Junior Trooper shows up and then just harasses you. So yeah, that's Paper Mario 64. Let's actually get to let's get to Thousand Year Door. Castle and Dragon. Yeah, Castle and Dragon, another A tier. Not as good. I don't think it's not as memorable as Koopa Brothers because Hooktail the villain is not as engaging. You do get built up because you see this guy. Because the first thing you do once you enter on your way to Petalburg, you see this colossal shadow pass over you in Goombella, and then you see this gigantic dragon kind of going in the background, and you're just like, that's what you have to fight. And of course, you gotta go get the Petalburg, get the key to allow you to get into the castle. Koops joins you later because it turns out the castle ate his father. There is a little Easter egg where you come across a skeleton and Cooper thinks is his dad, and it turns out to be Colorado's dad, or I think it's either Colorado or Cooper's dad. I can't remember which one it is because that's just such a minor detail. It doesn't drag on for that long. Like, this is probably this is the shortest chapter in the game. Well, second shortest. But it's paced perfectly. There's not really a lot you can do once you leave because you can pretty much do everything except for get the Ultra Stone, which is in Hooktail's castle, but you need Bobbery for that. And overall, this is just a solid chapter. It has a good story of Koops wanting to avenge his father and prove that he can be courageous and strong and want to protect his people because it is implied he does become mayor afterward. But it's just there's just not really a lot to do once you finish. Like, yeah, there is the Trouble City where you basically get to talk to Mayor for like, and Mario falls asleep like, and stuff like that. But it's an overall solid story. Great Boggly Woods. See, the first half of it, getting Flurry, there's some backtracking, not a lot, because you basically go to Flurry's town, then go fight the Shadow Sirens, and then go fight Fleur again. It's not really that long. It's basically like 2 rooms, and you can finish the rooms like really, really fast. However, the problems start once you actually get into the tree, because Thousand Year Door gave us this gimmick where you basically have to, in order to get to the Emerald Star, you got to have like a bunch of punies, and so you basically have to rescue the punies, have them follow you around the entire time. And it gets annoying where certain times where an enemy shows up, they'll get spooked and run away, and then kind of completely ruin it. And sometimes it will just it grinds the gameplay too long. Not to mention you have like the jabbies, which are like in certain areas you basically fight to nest, and it's basically puny on jabby warfare. And basically just standing there like literally just standing there watching the whole thing happen. Like, what's going on? What am I gonna do? And that's it. It's like it becomes so tedious because now you gotta make sure like all 100 jobby, like all the jobbies are actually in their place, because in order to get to the Emerald Star, you need to have every single jobby. And if you miss one, you gotta go back. You gotta actually find the dang things, or you just go back to the puny mayor, puny chieftain, to basically call him, and then you have to do the whole thing over again. It's just really tedious, and it's just so bad. It's just a big annoyance. So yeah, it gets into now it's getting into it's bottom tier. Thankfully, we got a Glitz and Glory next. Bar none the best chapter in across both games. This is bar none the best chapter. I love the setup of being a wrestling ring in the sky. I love how you actually get there because Rupert has like a Panada Mafia, and it's like, hey, you want a ticket to Glitzville? You gotta go find my daughter, so I can marry her off on the day of my daughter's wedding. It basically wants to go off with like his chief bouncer, and they're basically in love, and he's like, well, technically, you're here. And then Mario's like, hey, wait a minute, what about my ticket? Oh, you're still here? Oh, take the ticket and go. Take the ticket and go. I love this. I love the setup. Like, it's a really small area. There's only like at most 6 rooms that you're going to be using, but the build-up is amazing in the fact that you're introduced to the champion Rockhawk, who has the belt. You're immediately thought of, oh, he's the main boss. You get to the promoter Grubba, who's another clubber. Coincidence? I think not. However, he has policies. He gives Mario staging, the Great Gonzalez. And you're giving all these characters, like King K. Like, hey, I'm gonna help. Hey, how you doing? Hey, don't. And basically giving you all these tips. And even the combat is creative in the fact that every time you go to a match, you basically have to do a prerequisite. Otherwise, you don't advance up to the rank. If you don't do those things, like one of them will be you have to taunt 3 times the battle. If you win the battle without taunting, you advance up, but you still gotta fight those same people because you didn't do the prerequisites. And then as time goes on, there's a big mystery unfolding with like, oh, who is this X? What is going on? Is Rockhawk the actual? Because once you get to the major leagues, you'll find out that the star that Rockhawk has is fake. You're wondering, where is the star? Like, where is it? And it gets harder. You have to go across Rupert. You gotta actually leave Glitzville at one point. You gotta find this unwinding mystery. You find out that King K and Bandit Andy are like completely passed out in like the roofs. You get like all these threatening letters. It's really amazing, and you also get like the mini Yoshi, who's like, it's pretty cute. And also I love the fact that you can he technically can like randomize colors depending on what happened, like what time you get him, which is a really cool feature. He's just a really cool chapter. The only thing is the Grubba, who's the main villain, spoilers, not sorry, is just underwhelming. Again, he's thematically appropriate because he's like a heel. He's showboating, and so he's like, most of the time he's powering himself up. Yeah, he's like nothing. But even then, that doesn't stop this story from being like really, really cool, really, really creative. It leans so heavily on the whole goes all in on wrestling stuff. So it's just a fun chapter. And oh boy, for whom the pig tolls. This one is gonna be divisive because, on one hand, this chapter gave us Vivian. Let's not forget that. This chapter gave us Vivian. And Dupless is not a bad villain. And a lot of the stuff they do is very creative. That doesn't stop the fact that the gameplay is completely horrible in this chapter. Because, here's how the gameplay goes. You enter Twilight Town. You basically have to get something written on yourself by someone who lives in... by Darkly, who lives in... Ruinport, but no one really knows where he is, so you actually have to... So it's basically you have to just completely guess where he might be at. You go to Twilight Town. You find out that everyone's being turned to pigs, and Dupless is literally just doing that for the lulz. You basically have to talk to some people. Everyone's getting turned to pigs. You go to the gatekeeper. He refuses. You got to talk to the mayor to get the gatekeeper open. You go to the mayor's place. He gets turned to a pig. You realize, what the hell am I going to do? You hear the bell again. You go to the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper turns into a pig. And then you go to... you head to Creepy Steeple. Which you go... just basically... You basically go into the Creepy Steeple. And... you have to go through this Twilight Trail. And Twilight Trail is the reason why people hate this chapter. You gotta go through Twilight Trail, which is full of hyper enemies, which are enemies that can charge themselves off, and most importantly, crazy daisies. Keep that in mind. You go to Creepy Steeple, you basically solve a little puzzle for Creepy Steeple to be able to get to Dupless. You gotta free a bunch of boos, and the boos are like, oh, we're gonna help you out. Free us, we'll help you out. And, of course, it leads to an optional boss if you so want to do it. But it's not really that long. You go to Dupless, you beat Dupless, and we get a very amazing switch that kind of loses appeal once you know about it. Where you beat Dupless, and then, halfway through, he turns into like a shadow version of Mario. And once you beat Mario, you basically goes all out. Like, it gives you the chapter complete. It gives you the whole prompt thing. It doesn't give you... The only hint that something might be up is the fact it doesn't give you what the power is. And then Mario leaves. And I kid you not, when I first played this game, I actually thought the game was faulty because it was still stuck on the screen where, like, Dupless was down. I was like, what? Wait. Is my game bugged? And when I when I tried pressing buttons to see what happened, because I thought the game was glitched, Dupless jumped up, and I was like, I turned into Dupless. What? And then you gotta leave the Creepy Steeple. Here's where it gets fun. You gotta leave the Creepy Steeple, go back through the Twilight Trail without a partner, which can be very annoying. Go back to Twilight Town, find out that Dupless took over Mario's body, basically took his identity, but Mario can't leave because Dupless is really Mario. Then you gotta help Vivian. You get Vivian, you gotta go through the Twilight Trail again after you have to try some luck with trying to find out which crows would give you the information to basically get you the P. Then you have to go back through the Twilight Trail for the third time, go under the Creepy Steeple, get the letter P, basically spell Dupless's name, go back through the Twilight Trail again, go find Dupless, fight Dupless, spell out Dupless's name, breaking the curse, basically allowing Mario to defeat Dupless again, and then go back through the Twilight Trail a fifth time to fight Dupless again with Mario's partners, with just you and Vivian versus them. It's really tedious. It's godforsaken annoying that the story was just padded out so much in such a bad way. Like, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's like, I don't want to put it in D tier because, again, Dupless is not a bad villain. And, again, this is the chapter you get Vivian. And Vivian is, without a doubt, the most iconic character in Thousand Year Door. Like, there's no hiding that fact. Like, when people think of Thousand Year Door, like, what do you think of Thousand Year? People immediately think of Vivian. Because Vivian's just that well done of a character. It's so bad. It's so bad. I can't get past the fact that the gameplay is just so bad. It's so bad. It's worse than Boggly Woods. Because with Boggly Woods, like, you only have to backtrack at least a little bit at most. And you could even defeat the enemies, so that way it doesn't get as much tedious. So, but no, this one is like the moment you leave the Twilight Trail, even if you defeat the enemies, they come back. That's so bad. Kyo Hoki, S-Rank. The setup to the story is amazing. You gotta actually, basically the only person with enough skill in Rogueport that can take you to Kyo Hoki is Boggly, who's your partner for this chapter. However, Boggly is completely depressed. You gotta give him the letter from his dead wife in order to actually get to Kyo Hoki. Then you go with Flavia, which is like, come on, Flavia. Like, who doesn't love Flavia? Their boat crashes when Cortez basically sinks their ship. They crash onto Kyo Hoki. There's a lot of infighting because it's like, oh, the fuck? I blame Flavia. You gotta go find Boggly. Boggly thinks he's about to die and turns to go to sleep. You gotta actually wake him up. And then he basically goes to help you. And then you actually gotta get into Pirate's Grotto, which is a very, very long which is a very huge area, full of Cortez intimidating you. But it's not forced, unlike Dry Ruins. There's a lot of build up to Cortez, and then you fight Cortez, you kick ass, and it's like, and then you realize it's like, oh, you just wanted this one specific jar. It's like, you can take it. I don't really like it. And it's pretty funny. And then you basically go out through the back end of Kyo Hoki, behind his ship. You'll find out that the X-Nauts are actually basically attacking Kyo Hoki. You gotta get Flavio. Have Flavio talk to Cortez. Cortez is like, it's been a while since I set sail. I gotta help you. And basically leading to a very badass moment where Cortez literally takes his ship, goes through the scenery, and it's like, alright, we're gonna get you see like the Phantom Ember, the Embers versus the X-Nauts, and then Mario just jumps onto the ship to fight Crump. It's such an amazing set piece. Come on, you got everything from the comedic moments, because this is probably the funniest chapter in the game because you have like all this stuff with Flavio and Cortez like doing the ooh, and then like when you meet him it's like ooh, it's like, sorry, Migo, I'm tired of doing that shit. Where Migo? The whole setup with having to fight the X-Nauts after the chapter's already completed. Like, you have the chapter, so it's like a bait and switch, just like of chapter 4. You got a really memorable character in Cortez. You have such an amazing scenery. There is some backtracking because once Boggly kind of falls, because once Boggly kind of like is about to die, you got to go back to the beach to get the soda. Then you got to go back to Boggly, get that, and then you got to go back to Flavio because he's the one with the crystal skull that in order to get into the Pirate's Grotto. But it doesn't feel tedious because it doesn't happen it doesn't happen a million times. And 2, the enemies are like very, very easy to pass. Because you can use the Baby Yoshi, and you basically... And they're actually, at this point, they're actually easy enough that you can just reliably kill them even if you want to get like some experience points. And even if you kill them, they're gone for good. So, you know, it doesn't really hinder it. So, yeah, this gets an S tier. Then we get the 3 Days of Excess. This one gets an A tier. I love the setup because this one's actually shorter than Kyo Hoki and the next 2 chapters. This one has a better mystery aspect than Shiver City because there's only 2 halves of the story of this chapter. The first half is all mystery. Like, there's not really any battling. It's just a bunch of mysteries that you're trying to help. You basically meet Pennington, who's just basically a bumpty who's like pretends to be a bad interpretation of like, I don't know, thing of Sherlock Holmes, and he constantly calls Mario Luigi. He's a very hilarious character. He's not really that memorable because he kind of gets annoying after a while. You have to do all these mystery solving, and then you get to Riverside Station. And Riverside Station is where it kind of falls off because Riverside Station's just nothing. It's just, there was actually cut content that Riverside Station was actually going to be a little longer, and it was going to have the second fight against the Shadow Sirens. And Beldum was actually, it was supposed to reveal that Beldum summoned the boss of the area, Smorg, to basically slow down Mario so that way they can get to the Garnet Star. However, that never happened. So Smorg just kind of shows up and just like, what is this? And of course you got the memorable part of like the Smorg taking over the train and capturing all the passengers, and basically you have to fight the Smorg on top of the running train with like the very cool music playing in the background. It's a really cool, memorable aspect, but it's just Riverside Station's just such a bland area. It's like it's an abandoned midway station, like refueling station, stuff like that, and it's just boring. It's just really there. There's just not a lot of personality, like because all the personality is like front and end loaded. Because once you get to Postulate Heights, it's just you go inside the museum. Pennington reveals that he's actually the museum creator, and he just like walk up to a podium and grab it. I mean, not to mention, like Postulate Heights also gives like Lady Bow in the epilogue because she just shows up there. And, come on, more Lady Bow is always awesome. Okay, so we got 2 chapters left. We got Shoots for the Moon, and oh, good God. Remember how I said the backtracking in Twilight Town area was bad? This is worse. Because in order to get to the moon, you gotta go to Shiver City. You have to go to... You basically have to go to Shiver City. Then the Shiver City mayor... You can only talk to the Bomb because... If you have specifically Bobbery out, and they won't tell you that unless you basically talk to, pay attention to Professor Frankly. So you're like powering through the, like spamming the text. You're not gonna get that. And then he said he'll only be able to use the bombs if he gets permission, from the grant to activate it, and he gets General White who operates it. So you basically have to go back to Postulate Heights, talk to Goldbop. That'd be like not really that tedious, not really that long. It's just 5 minutes, because you also get access to a pipe that just takes you directly to Postulate Heights. So that's not really that bad. General White is really the worst part of it because you got to travel to every single other area in the game. You gotta go to Petalburg, you gotta go to Glitzfield, you gotta go to the Boggly Tree, you gotta go to everyone and talk to a specific NPC. Basically it was like, oh, General White was here? That's fine. And then it gets worse when you get to Kyo Hoki. I can't remember if it was Kyo Hoki or was it Express that did this. But Francisca is forgetting lost her wedding ring. And so basically you gotta find the wedding ring. And then you gotta give it back to and then Frankie's like trying to butter her up, and then Francis goes, "No, I want you to say sorry 100 times." And then you have to wait. You have to wait for Frankie to say I'm sorry 100 times. It's so tedious. It's so bad. No, it is Excess. It's Excess Express that does that. When the Pinata father, basically the Palm father, is like sick, is like actually got himself sick by missing him. But yeah, you gotta go all the. Then you be like, where is he? And then you gotta go back to the mayor. You gotta talk to the mayor and then find out that General White was inside Far Outpost the entire time. And no, you can't just go, you can't just go in that area. No, you have to specifically go to every single other area in order to trigger General White being there. That is so bad. That's worse than Creepy Steeple. The only thing that saves it is the fact that the moon, once you actually get past the moon, everything is immediately better. You literally go to the moon, you go into the exile phase, the gameplay and the puzzles of using every single partner you have, well, you don't use every single partner, you use some of them, is used very excellently. The boss against Magnus von Grapple 2.0 is amazing. Everything is just really well done. It's just frankly amazing. And it just barely saves it from Creepy Steeple, because the gameplay in Creepy Steeple is just bad. Well, and the whole point of the chapter is the backtracking. Well, this one's just only the first half. And once you get past that, it's good. And then finally, for this video, we have Palace of Shadow, the final chapter. S rank. This one kind of has a thing where I was actually talking with a friend where we talking about our favorite villains, and I mentioned the Shadow Queen from Thousand Year Door. It's like, why do you like the Shadow Queen? Because I love that sense of ambiguity about her. Because you gotta actually play because this is something you can't just tell someone. You actually have to play the game and talk to as many NPCs as possible. And there's so much ambiguity around her, but there's just enough that the mind kind of wonders. The whole setting is great, where it basically leaks all this darkness from the door, and you basically go in, you travel through a gigantic palace, and then you get to the foyer, you see ruins of what used to be old Rupori still in the palace. There's not really a lot of story development until the very end, where you fight Grotus, and you find that out. You basically go in the Tower of Riddles, where you see this remnant of what used to be in the past that was locked behind 1,000 years. You find all this ambiguous stuff. This specifically requires you, Goombella, to be out at all times in order to get all these elements. And it's just such a really, it makes use of every single partner you have in your party, with the exception of Miss Mouse, because Miss Mouse is optional. The gameplay is amazing. You don't backtrack at all. The only time you backtrack is specifically to access the Tower of Riddles, which is not really that long because it's just 3 long corridors, and the Tower of Riddles is just basically one big puzzle area anyway. And then you have to use every single ability you have access to, every single partner you have access to. It has a phenomenal final boss in the Shadow Queen, and who was a very memorable villain. You have the boss against Grotus. You have the very hilarious fourth wall break moment with Bowser crashing the whole party. He's like, "Aha! What's a finale without a Bowser fight? A cruddy finale. That's what." And overall, it is just a great end to Thousand Year Door. I love Thousand Year Door. Thousand Year Door is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Even I can admit that's it's not perfect. Dave too can kind of confirm. But overall, I love these games. I love doing this. So I'll see you next time on part 2 with the bosses.